Serious Survivor here. Today we're going to look at 12 things we can do to help us prepare for a grid down situation. A grid down event could be a massive and difficult situation, whether the event is from a network hacking attack, solar flare, or coronal mass ejection, EMP, or due to any event that ends with power stations, substations, and supply lines suffering permanent impairment and possibly even destruction. In this video, we're looking at a permanent type of event, not the local or regional power outages experienced after a severe storm or a similar scenario. These cannot be compared because with a local or temporary event, every survivor has the knowledge that help is coming, that repairs will be made, and life will go back to what we call normal. With a permanent event, people will quickly realize life and survival are now intertwined. With a grid down event, it is likely that most will stay in the security of their own homes. There will be some that bug out from the urban areas immediately, but I would expect that most will opt to shelter in place, feeling relatively safe in the confines of their homes or structures. However, this will not stand true for all. Some will realize the dangers to come and may head out to more remote areas to attempt survival and stay out of heavy populated areas. This video concentrates on the circumstances for those who do not or purely cannot leave the area for a more isolated location. Number 1, always carry these items in your car. In your vehicle or vehicles, always keep what I call an auto kit. In every vehicle, there are some items that should always be present, or as many of these as possible. And these are weapon and ammunition, jumper cables, a gallon of water or antifreeze, stop leak for the radiator, fix a flat for tires, a tire plug kit, replacement valve stems, a small set of auto tools, hammer, rope or line, tow straps or chain, spare tire and lug wrench, a 12-volt DC tire inflator, a blanket, a change of clothes, 3 days of food and water, crowbar, road flares, WD-40 duct tape or stronger. This may seem like a lot, but it's really not. Most of these items are already in everyone's car or truck. In addition to these items, have a bag that's taken with you at all times. When you change vehicles, take the bag with you because all your vehicles already have the earlier mentioned equipment. But the idea of a get-home bag or a GHB is to be light, portable, and easy to carry without restricting your ability to fight, and a smaller bag will draw a lot less attention. This bag just needs to get you home, but at the same time it needs the supplies necessary to survive for 24 to 96 hours. Number 2, develop your situational awareness. This is crucial. Pay attention to detail. The military taught me a lot, but one of the lessons that still benefit me today is attention to detail. Notice everything, no matter how small. We can practice this now. When you enter a building, begin paying attention to the number of people there. Think who would obviously be a threat and those who are trying to gray out. Notice the number of doors, which ones lead to the outside and which ones are interior doors. This tells us how many escape routes that we have available. Notice who notices you. Pay attention to the sights that you see every day on your way to work or town. Start taking note of what things you expect to see daily and what's out of place. Listen to the sounds of your areas. What noises would be normal, which are not? Should this area be quiet, or is it normally very loud due to people and congestion? It only takes a little practice to begin noticing things and being aware of what's around you. Using all 5 senses, using your peripheral vision, which is seeing things in a direction that we're not facing, our flank or our sides. The more we notice now, the more we will recognize and really see, not just what's happening, but what may happen. Always evaluate your actions before performing them. Think about what will happen with every decision you make. Consequences in this type of scenario can be much more severe than in our normal everyday life. It only takes one mistake, one bad decision. Number 3, have a plan to get home. This is very important because the average American spends 30 to 40% of their life away from home, that being a job, transit time, and other activities. So chances are that we will not be at home when an event occurs. As a matter of fact, when an event happens, there will definitely be millions that are stranded away from their home and family. Having a plan that can be followed will make the difference. The routes we normally drive will not be convenient anymore with gridlocks and people panicking, and alternate route may be in order. Not just one route though, have multiple. Pick ways that you can get home without traveling through the most populated areas. Try to coordinate your route with vicinities that do not take you through the densest areas of town. Try back roads, secondary streets. After developing this plan, develop a similar plan for everyone in your family. Make sure that everyone is not only intimately familiar with the route they have to take and the alternate routes, but make sure that they also know and understand the routes that all other members of the group will be taking. Time these routes and be familiar with how long it should take to travel each one of them. Take into account that some members may have to deviate from their primary route, and this will add time to their transit. Set time frames that would take into account those factors and have everyone understand how long it should take for all members to get there. This will be crucial in the event that someone doesn't make it home in a set time frame, because at this point you may have to go back out to look for your kids or family. Number 4, secure your home. This can mean so many different things to different people. It all depends on where you live. Here are some things that we can do to secure our location. All of these will not apply to everyone, but some will apply to all. Have wood or solid materials for boarding up the windows and the less used doors. It's best to board these from the inside so that you can move them and access the window. You may want to leave an opening though so that you can fire through it and see what's approaching. If a 2-story or more dwelling, then board only the first floor and cellars, so that you may use the second story and higher windows for sniping positions and defense. Also keep an escape ladder, so if evac from the higher floors would be possible without risk of injury. Booby traps. The use of booby traps can work quite well, and these traps range dramatically in size and build. Things like tripwires, motion sensors if they're solar or battery operated. But be careful, especially if children are present. Make sure the traps are placed effectively and that everyone in your group knows exactly where they are. Don't store any of your gear in outside utility buildings or similar. This leaves them susceptible to theft. Any type of fencing or barriers that can be placed or built will slow down an approaching enemy. But remember, if the barrier is solid, this will also provide cover for the enemy. Try to use chain link, barbed wire, or other fencing that you can see through so that an enemy cannot hide behind it. If possible, construct barriers that leave only one point of entry to the structure. This will serve as a funnel point to reduce an enemy's numerical advantage. Make your place look like it's already been ransacked from the outside. Leaving trash or debris in the yard, make it look unlived in. If someone believes that a group or individual is holding up there, they will view this as a target. Have someone on watch, someone to give an early warning if intruders do appear. Keep all flammable materials away from the outside of the house. Do not place gas canisters or any type of storage for fuel directly on the exterior of your house. Keep it a little further off. Keep fire extinguishers on hand. If an enemy cannot penetrate your defenses, they may very well try to burn you out, and this is also why gas masks and filters are necessary equipment. If it's winter and very cold, make sure to pour water or liquid on the easy access approaches to your location. This creates ice and makes it difficult for someone to approach. Have a dog, maybe 2. Always park vehicles out of sight or behind the location. Never leave your place of refuge unarmed, and always dress unassuming. Older, dark, and bland clothing appear unclean, no shower, hair unkept, unshaven. Don't wear any type of scented fragrances, cologne, perfume. A clean and well-kept person is a person who has supplies and access to water and more. Or at least that's the appearance it will give, and that appearance will attract unwanted attention, possibly making you a target. We need firearms and ammunition, bladed weapons and hand-to-hand combat skills, tactical knowledge. Granted, not everyone will be faced with immediate conflict, but for some it will come later. We can practice now with firearms, and that should be done. Everyone should be proficient with the firearm of their choice. But it is just as important to learn about all other weapon types. We need to know how these devices work, the differences between them, the different calibers, how to clean and repair simple failures. Being familiar with the different types so that everyone knows how to operate any of them. We never know what kind of weapon we would end up with in an apocalyptic scenario. For defense in the aftermath, higher caliber weapons with more stopping power may be preferred, but try to stick to the most common calibers, then it will make it easier to find ammo in this type of situation. Knives are a personal choice, but full tang, strong steel, 440 or higher. Don't pick a knife on looks, pick it on how well you can handle it. Does it fit well in your hand? Can you use it? Is it too big or too small? A knife is an extension of yourself. It must fit, and many people train with knives. So keep in mind that someone who pulls a knife may very well know how to use it. Hand-to-hand combat, this is not hard to develop, but it can take time for some. We don't have to be the greatest fighter in the world, just the best fighter that we can be as an individual. Battle tactics. For those without military experience, this is a subject you should study. It's not hard to pick up the basics, but without practice, an idea is simply an idea. Those are just a few things we can do. A much more in-depth discussion on a video coming very soon. Number 5. Generating electricity can be done in many ways, and there are a multitude of options to choose from. But there are many factors to take into consideration, noise being one of those. If you're in a populated area, then using an internal combustion gas or diesel generator will not only provide power, but it will also alert everyone within earshot that you do have power. Most will view electricity as one of the most precious resources after it's been lost, then this will make you and your family or group an extremely high priority target. Although a generator is a great device and having one or more will enable you to survive a lot easier, there are other alternatives that may even prove better in the long run. For one reason, gas will run out, but let's look at some of the other possibilities. A complete solar system. The average annual electricity consumption for a U.S. residential utility customer was 10,398 kilowatt hours, an average of 867 kilowatt hours per month. That's for an entire house, though. In a survival situation, we would need much less. Lighting, computers, TVs, video games, and all other devices we normally use without consideration of the power they consume won't be a factor anymore. Because with the grid down, there'll be no internet, cable TV, phone calls, or text. And without these unnecessary appliances running, we will need much lower amounts of electricity. The average refrigerator uses 100 watts when running, and that averages to 2.4 kilowatts per day. So look at every device that you want to power and factor in the rating for these devices and determine how much supply you would need. The solar panel cost for an average size installation in the U.S. ranges from about $11,000 to $14,000 and up. Full solar may not be an option, but there are still multiple other choices. Smaller portable solar devices. To power the smaller devices, lights, rechargeable batteries, or devices that normally plug into the wall and use an adapter to convert the 120 AC into 12-9 or 24 DC power supplies, these devices can easily be charged with smaller solar panels, the portable type, the folding ones, briefcase styles, solar generators, and many more on the market. Hand power, foot power. These devices do generate power, but for a lot of them, they only generate power that's usable at the moment. You would have to incorporate a battery circuit to store the power for use later. Wind power. This may not be feasible for most, but it's a great choice for those who can afford it. Wind turbines under 100 kilowatts cost roughly $3,000 to $8,000 per kilowatt of capacity. A 10 kilowatt machine, the size that's needed to power a larger home, might have an installed cost of $50,000 to $80,000. Rechargeable batteries are not a permanent solution, but they do provide years of use. Battery technology has come a long way, and having a large supply of these, along with the means to charge them, like you mentioned solar panels before, then this can be a valuable resource and will definitely improve quality of life, and not to mention a great barter tool. But also we have a need for the correct tools to work on these devices, things like multimeters or a voltmeter, electrician's tools, basic mechanic tools, spare wiring, and even spare parts for your power source. Also a soldering gun or soldering iron, grounding straps. All these tools we would normally expect to use when working on and troubleshooting electrical and electronic devices. Even more importantly, know the system you choose like the back of your hand. Food and water. These, of course, are crucial. Use the 8x8 rule. The average person needs 8 8-ounce glasses of water per day, which comes out to about a half a gallon of water per day. So that means the average person will have to intake 15 gallons of water per month. In the heat of summer, an active person should intake 35 to 40% more water than normal if the activities are strenuous. It's recommended to store commercially purified water because it has a much longer shelf life than stored tap water. For tap water, though, rotate it out every 6 months at the least. Purified or distilled water can last for 2 years and up, depending on the quality. Food can vary greatly depending on the age, size, and physical condition of the person. To eat properly, ensure your supply can provide 2,000 to 2,500 calories a day per person. In winter, the human body will burn at least 25% more calories if the person is active. This is one of the areas that will take up the most space. And also, these are very heavy items. Water is about 8.34 pounds per gallon, which can put a lot of stress on the floor. Boiling and simple filtration can suffice in most circumstances. Boil for 10 to 15 minutes, adding an additional 5 minutes for every 1,000 feet above sea level. If you cannot store, you'll have to filter and purify. Barter. Having items that you can trade for resources will prove to be a determining factor for some. For those who are unable or unwilling to leave their location and bug out, then this can be an option that will give you long-term survivability. But this is also dangerous because not everyone will want to trade. There will be a lot who only want to take. So make sure you can defend your area. Some obvious choices are precious metals, food, water and purification, first aid, tools, and the list goes on, but also things that people will need, such as reading glasses, drinking alcohol, clothing, shoes, boots, gloves, basic survival tools. Skills and abilities are a very valuable commodity in the long term. Medical and health. The last thing we want is to survive the apocalypse and then die from an infected cut. This, without a doubt, would be immensely valuable and life-saving. Any and all types of supplies are recommended if you are able and have the room. But the basics are bandages, band-aids, ointments, antibiotics, suturing kits, pain relievers, fever reducers, ibuprofen, aspirin, Aleve, Motrin, and other over-the-counter medicines, dental repair and pain relievers, toothpaste, brush. Dental care is as important as physical care. This for me is a huge section, and the reason for storing more supplies than I personally need is because someone will need them. And making allies because I had the supplies to save someone's life will prove fruitful in future situations. Everyone should learn the basics of first aid, and a lot of people already have this ability. But even if you don't have the capability to use the more advanced medical equipment, someone does, and they will at some point need it. Basic skills. Not going to go very in-depth here. Just want to mention the importance of having the basic skills in any situation. These are our fire making, water purification, land navigation, basic first aid, hunting, and fishing will also prove to be high demand skills in the apocalypse. After the dust settles, there will be a need for all skill types. 10. Have a plan to bug out. Even if the plan is to shelter in place for as long as possible or permanent, there may come a time when there's no other option than to escape or bug out. So having a bug out bag or bug out kit ready at all times is a necessity. Here's some items to include in this type of kit. Also have a location planned ahead of time that you can retreat to, a bug out location. An area far from the dangers that will arise in an urban environment, an area that also has access to water and possibly food sources to hunt and fish for, an area that won't be easily discovered, out of the way, off the beaten path. A bug-out route should follow the same criteria as any escape plan or route. Scavenging and comms gear. Aside from gear we have previously mentioned, it will be a benefit to obtain some devices that will make survival easier, especially communication devices. Whether a shortwave or ham radio or other means, being able to determine what areas are most dangerous and what areas you could find allies in will be essential. And having the means of communication will allow you to communicate with people that are further off and gain as much information as you can. The not knowing factor will be just as unnerving as the event itself. Eventually, once the initial chaos subsides, there will be the need to scavenge for supplies. Always do this in a group if at all possible, but for some, going solo may be the only option. And truthfully, anything that we could store that in turn helps us survive is definitely worth considering. Civil unrest and war. After the event occurs, people will begin to react accordingly. At first, folks will probably think this is just a normal power outage and service will be restored shortly. There will, of course, be some increase in crime at this time. Crimes of opportunity, basically people doing what they can to those who they can do it to. Those who didn't take it seriously may be at a loss now, while those who have prepared will be able to function and hopefully make it to a safe location before things escalate. After people see the power is not coming back on, then this will be the time that the gangs will form. But not only form, they'll begin to attempt to take territory, resources, and supplies. The need for group strength is evident. Without people to back you up, then bunkering in a static location will only work for so long. At some point, people will find you and try to take all that you have, sacrificing you in the process. This is why it's so important now to build and develop the appropriate self-defense skills. Waiting could be a mistake. A military invasion would also be very likely. When other nations know the grid is down, then this will leave us susceptible to attack, presumably because one of the other nations may have been responsible for this. If this does occur, then that would change everything. Our military will still be intact with this type of event. I would expect the military to still have comms in place, as the majority of those types of equipment are designed to withstand EMP and other events, which means that with an armed population, along with the strength of our military, we would fight and we would win for future generations. And this is an in-depth subject we'll go much deeper into soon, but we should keep in mind when prepping, this is a very likely scenario. Well, those are some things we could do or take into consideration for prepping for an event like this. I hope this helps. Thanks a lot for watching, and for now, Serious Survivor, out.